Roger Stone has been sentenced to 40 months in prison. The longtime friend and advisor to President Trump was found guilty on 7 counts, including obstructing a congressional inquiry, making false statements, and witness tampering. He will also be given 2 years probation, 250 hours of community service, and be forced to pay a $20,000 fine. President Trump railed against the prosecutors and jury involved in the Stone case in Las Vegas on Thursday. He also said he hasn't made up his mind on a pardon. Take a look.
But I'm not going to do anything in terms of the great powers bestowed upon a president of the United States. I want the process to play out. I think that's the best thing to do, because I'd love to see Roger exonerated, and I'd love to see it happen, because I personally think he was treated very unfairly.
Let's bring in our panel, Meridith McGraw, Emma Dumain, and Keir Dougall. Meridith is a White House reporter for Politico. Emma is a congressional reporter for McClatchy, and Keir is a CBSN legal contributor and former assistant U.S. attorney for New York's Eastern District. Welcome to all of you. Keir, I want to begin with you. Given the facts as we know them in the Roger Stone case, do you believe the sentence that Judge Jackson handed down was appropriate?
Yeah, I think Judge Jackson deserves high praise today. She applied the facts and the law, followed the rules, did a standard application of the sentencing guidelines, which, by the way, substantially disagreed with the sentencing memorandum that the Attorney General submitted. He suggested that a guidelines range close to 7 years was inappropriate. She found otherwise. But what we saw here was her defending the integrity and the independence of the judicial branch, stating clearly that truth matters in a courtroom, and then applying leniency and mercy to a defendant, I believe, as she noted, because of his age and his health, and some of his other good public works that she noted at the sentencing.
Well, Meridith, we heard from the president just a moment ago. Does it appear there is any sentence that the president would find acceptable?
Has flirted with the idea of pardoning Roger Stone. He, of course, has railed against the circumstances that put Roger in this position. And while today he didn't say that explicitly he would pardon Stone, he didn't rule that out either. And of course, this week we saw the president roll out a series of pardons and clemencies. And certainly with Roger Stone, that's certainly not off, it's not out of the realm of possibility at this point.
Well, Emma, House Intelligence Committee Chair Adam Schiff tweeted this in response to the Stone sentencing, quote, Roger Stone was found guilty of lying to Congress and threatening a witness. He did it to cover up for Trump. His sentence is justified. It should go without saying, but to pardon Stone when his crimes were committed to protect Trump would be a breathtaking act of corruption, end quote. What kind of reaction are you hearing from lawmakers on the Stone case?
Lawmakers are being relatively quiet in their reaction to the Stone case and the sentencing today. Republicans have the advantage of a congressional recess right now. They are not on Capitol Hill. Few of them are in Washington. They're scattered around the country. Some are out of the country on Codels. They don't have to respond to reporters' questions. They don't have to issue statements. They don't have to tweet. Right. We did see a tweet from Senator Lindsey Graham, a staunch Trump ally and the chairman of the Senate Judiciary Committee. He tweeted that he thought that the 3-year sentence for Roger Stone was too lenient given the charges against him, but he noted that Trump was within his power to pardon Stone if he so chooses. Democrats, of course, are putting out the warning signal that if Trump chooses to pardon Roger Stone, it would be a problem for them. It could launch another round of congressional investigations and inquiries. There's no telling what it could do for Democrats' insistence on continuing to hold Trump accountable after they were unable to convict him from office or remove him from office with conviction in an impeachment proceeding. Mm-hmm. And Republicans will be put in a spot as well, particularly more vulnerable Republicans up for re-election this cycle in the Senate who are struggling with how to respond to some of the president's more controversial actions and remarks.
Right. November is just around the corner. Meredith, your colleague, Daniel Lippman, writes, the president's defenders are targeting associates of former special counsel Robert Mueller's team. That would include the prosecutors who initially worked on the Stone case. What are the next steps we could see in the president's post-impeachment purge?
Well, President Trump has heard a growing chorus around him of people calling for the removal of DOJ and FBI, people who worked on the Mueller probe and the Mueller investigation. And the president, in the aftermath of the impeachment, has grown increasingly paranoid and dependent on people he views as loyal to him. If you can, remember just recently, he had Admiral Vindman removed, the EU ambassador Gordon Sondland removed, but he's also brought in White House loyalists, people like Hope Hicks, people like Johnny McEntee, and then even just yesterday, Ambassador Richard Grenell, the ambassador to Germany, was brought on to be acting director of national intelligence. And these are all people that the president sees as loyal to him. He's known them for a long time, and he's very close to them. And so he's going to be leaning on them. And I was just told by sources today that in terms of personnel changes in the aftermath of all this, we should expect to see more in the coming weeks.
All right, I want to ask you about Grenell in just a moment. But Keir, as you and others have noted, the judge in this case was very forceful in handing down this sentence. But more broadly, what are the constitutional implications of this case?
Look, we need to be concerned about the independence of law enforcement and the independence of the judiciary. Quite frankly, the way that the Attorney General has injected himself, ultimately, effectively landing in the same place that I suspect we would have ended up had he said nothing. The way that he conducted himself is frankly shabby. And it has created this appearance of intermeddling, of putting the thumb on the scales on behalf of what appears to be his political patron, Donald Trump. The Attorney General testified under oath at his confirmation hearing and gave us all the fierce impression that he would be independent. He would not be pushed around by anyone. He made an explicit point of that. But he's left this appearance now that is very concerning to the rule of law and to the independence of our branches of government. And I'll be watching to see whether or not, because he said just recently that he believed it was impossible for him to do his job, if the president continues to, make statements directed at the Justice Department in particular cases, as apparently he's continuing to do. The Attorney General has said that it's impossible for him to do his job. I'll be watching to see whether he meant what he said. And if he did, I would not be surprised if, in fact, as a result of additional tweets, he considers resigning.
All right. Well, Meredith, we mentioned new acting director of national intelligence, Richard Grenell, whom the president appointed to replace Joseph McGuire. Grenell is currently the U.S. ambassador to Germany. Why did the president pick Grenell? What does this choice say about the president's relationship with the intelligence community?
Well, first and foremost, he picked Grenell because of his loyalty to President Trump. During his time as ambassador to Germany, Grenell has been an outspoken advocate for the president, sometimes even getting into Twitter feuds with other diplomats abroad. But certainly his loyalty played a big role in this decision. Now, Grenell will be serving in an acting capacity, and he will be also serving as ambassador to Germany. And I was told he will be stationed in Washington while that is going on. And the White House still needs to pick somebody to nominate for the permanent role of Director of National Intelligence, and they need to do that before March 11th. I'm told by White House sources that they do have a short list for who that person might be, and we can expect an announcement of that as soon as, a few days from now or longer. But Grenell's closeness to the president and his closeness especially to Ivanka Trump played a role in this. And the president has long been skeptical of the intelligence community, specifically their findings that Russia interfered in the 2016 election in his favor. He never likes to hear about that. And that skepticism certainly played a role in bringing in somebody like Grenell to fill that acting role.
Right, a skepticism that has been on public display. Emma, how are lawmakers, especially those involved in the intelligence community, reacting to Grenell taking over this post? Were they consulted at all?
We don't have any indication of whether they were consulted or not. Again, lawmakers are very much taking advantage of this congressional recess to lay low, to not have to answer to the president's latest controversial actions. We're seeing typical party line responses right now. Senator Roy Blunt, a member of the Senate Intelligence Committee, said in a brief interview earlier today, published by Meridith's fine paper Politico, that he felt comfortable with Grinnell's appointment. That is an encouraging sign. Democrats do not feel good about it. That is also to be expected. To Meridith's point, they are concerned that President Trump put him in this position, even in an acting capacity, because of his loyalty and because he will tell the president what he wants to hear. That's the Democratic concern right now. Because he's in an acting capacity, he doesn't need to be confirmed. There's every indication that the president and his team plan to nominate someone in the days or weeks ahead who would go through the confirmation process. But by having all of these people in acting capacities, Trump is able to work around the Senate confirmation process and put the people into place who he wants to have serve at his pleasure and at his whim. And that's something that, you know, we should be watching in the days and weeks ahead, and even months, depending on how things go with Grinnell. And if the president likes Grinnell and wants him to stick around, we could see him stick around longer in an acting capacity. He has a certain amount of time to serve in that acting capacity before he has to go, which is why we're seeing Joseph McGuire leave by March 12th, the latest, because of that expiration date for people in this position in acting capacities. So, you know, the ball is very much in the president's court as far as how long he wants Grinnell to serve, and it's going to come down to some Republicans who Trump might listen to or might feel that they can influence Trump, who are involved in the intelligence community in the House and Senate. It could be up to them to suggest to the president that he pick someone else and offer suggestions about who could be confirmed.
All right, to be continued. Meridith McGraw, Emma Dumain, and Keir Dougall, thank you all very much.